I'll never forget a moment in 2003. Yeah, the kids were still young, and Saturday nights meant going to the Blockbuster video store to pick out a video for that night at home. I'll never forget that night looking up on the shelf and seeing a newly released movie that looked really good. But a friend of mine informed me that, it's kind of a chick flick, so I passed. Little did I know that that one movie would create a frenzy of mostly women that in droves were booking flights to Tuscany, Italy. I can still hear many of my friends' voices. "Oh, you gotta go to Tuscany. It's so beautiful. The wine, oh my God." Yeah, nothing from their rants made me want to go. Well, this year, since we were driving from Rome to Florence, Italy anyway, and of course I had my GPS, I thought it'd be a good idea to grab an Airbnb, and we found one with this sweet lady in Tuscany, in what they call the Chianti region, and maybe check it out for ourselves and find out what all the hoopla was about.
Yeah, I was out for a morning walk in my pajamas. It's that good. I gotta be quiet because the lady of the house is sleeping in one of these rooms somewhere. We've got our own room, and there's places like this throughout Tuscany where you get your own bedroom, sometimes a kitchenette, whatever. Like, look at this bedroom here. But the awesome thing is it only takes one split second to realize that you're in the most beautiful place on earth.
And it was at this point that I felt like I was the kid that made the awesome score. This place was absolutely beautiful. Yeah, inside and out. And the one thing that I found is that places like this aren't near any main highways. They aren't on any tourist maps or tour destinations. You just gotta find them. Now, the place that we found sat on a high hill in the Chianti region with a 1,000-year-old road that leads up to it. And it overlooks the region that has produced some of the best Chianti wines that the world has ever known. And, of course, the first thing I had to do was go and explore the grounds. And there, on the slopes of the hills, it's literally the Garden of Eden. Olive orchards, figs, persimmons, herb gardens growing basil, parsley, you name it. And, of course, chickens. Oh yeah, and what Italian garden would be complete without fresh tomatoes? And growing right next to the fresh basil. Perfect! So, speaking of eating, I figured we could probably do better than just sitting out in the garden gorging on tomatoes and basil. So, I got together with our host, Patricia, whose family has lived on this property for centuries and still maintains it with her grown son and her mother. I had some questions, and I wanted to know where we could find a good bite to eat tonight. Is there a good place to buy some groceries around here? Well, I only speak a few words of Italian, and she only speaks a few words of English. The Google Translator thing wasn't working, so I think we both just tried to make the best of it.
Allora, per una piccola spesa a Gaiola in Chianti c'è tutto, farmacia, piccolo supermercato, bar, pizzeria, tutto. Altrimenti a Siena ci sono tutti i supermercati. Coppe, Selunga, tutti.
Cappasolunga?
Sì, Conad.
Eventually, she was able to let me know that there was a small town called Radda that was just a few miles away that might have what we're looking for. And man, Was it a cool little place? It was a pretty basic little town, but it surrounds a medieval structure from the 1100s. Inside there were some street shops, a couple restaurants, and an ancient underground wine cellar that has stored some of the region's best wines for hundreds of years. But back outside in the little town, I discovered what many of the locals do when they're hungry. They stop into this local deli and grocer and bring their food home to eat. So I figured we'd do the same. When in Rome, right? And everything in this place was prepared by hand and absolutely fresh. So I had to stock up. So, after a fabulous Italian deli takeout feast overlooking the hills off the patio, the next morning we decided to take a drive north to Florence. Now, the only thing is, though, we never made it to Florence. Let me put it this way. If you ever plan on a morning drive through Tuscany, you're going to have to make plans to pull over to the side of the road. A lot. Because around every turn will be sights that I can only imagine are like standing on the edge of the earth itself and looking off into heaven. It's where the light, the mist, and the hills perform an amazing visual symphony, where once medieval kingdoms still peek from above the clouds, and where the ancient soil is busy creating some of the most sought-after grapes in the world. Oh, and the movie that started the mass interest in Tuscany? Well, you probably know, Under a Tuscan Sun, where a lady drops everything to move to Tuscany and buy a house. Well, we looked at a place too. Maybe we'll think about it for now. So if you're planning your own visit to the Chianti region, remember, the best way to experience it is by driving your own car in and away from the main highways. Find a friendly, secluded place and be ready to be amazed under the beautiful Tuscan sun.